all the strong, weak, and electromagnetic interactions should conserve, should obey charge conservation, which is coming because of beyond space-time symmetries. So along with that, we do have other symmetries, like which is beyond space-time symmetry, that is called as crossing symmetry. The name crossing symmetry occurs because for every particle there is an antiparticle. So when we have antiparticles, there is something called as crossing symmetry. For every particle there is an antiparticle, and this is a discrete symmetry. You should notice that this is a discrete symmetry. I should note it down. So there is, this is a discrete symmetry. Okay. So crossing symmetry is a discrete symmetry. If I didn't mention it, so discrete symmetry, crossing symmetry. So what is crossing symmetry? I will tell you in a minute. That is definition of crossing symmetry. So when you have discrete symmetries, Noether's law tells you that there is no conservation law, but you can observe crossing symmetry. So first thing what we said is, we are taking symmetry and its connection with conservation law. That is first step. I have a conservation law and a symmetry, but that is only for continuous symmetry. If I have a discrete symmetry, just observe it. Symmetry. So then this doesn't exist. There is no conservation law. That doesn't, this goes down. But I can only observe such discrete symmetries, and what are the implications of discrete symmetry in elementary particle physics. See, remember, we are only talking about elementary particle interactions, and in elementary particle interactions, I do not know the form of or nature, mathematical nature of these interactions. So I need to depend on something which I can observe experimentally. For that, I will say, to experimentally observe something, I will take the help of what is called as symmetry, continuous as well as discrete. So that is what is the whole idea. So we are only depending on continuous as well as discrete symmetries. And then what should we expect experimentally? That is what we are focusing on. So because only experimental way I can get some inputs and then develop my theory. That's the idea. So when I do that, I notice crossing symmetry says, definition of crossing symmetry. If an elementary particle process like this is found to occur in nature, then the following processes involving what is antiparticles should also occur. So what are antiparticle processes? If A, B, C, D are there, there should exist A bar, B bar, C bar, D bar. They should exist in nature. So if A, B, C, D happens, then I can write A, take C to left hand side, it becomes a C bar. That's the rule for crossing symmetry. Crossing symmetry rules say that if you take a left hand side element to right hand side, make it an antiparticle. Take a right hand side element to left hand side, make it an antiparticle. So if corresponding to AB plus CD, you have this process also occurs. That is what I am trying to tell you is, if you have seen this process experimentally, you notice this process, then all these processes are ensured. That is, this should happen. They should happen. If this happens, if this process happens, all these processes should occur in nature is the demand by crossing symmetry. Crossing symmetry demands this, and an experimentalist can observe these processes, all these processes, once this is observed experimentally. So that is what is the rule of crossing symmetry. That is, symmetry demands that if one occurs, then all the other concerned processes occur. So we say this process is related to these other processes using crossing symmetry. We have a crossing symmetry relating all the four processes is what we can say. So with that, we will now, I had told you last time, but I was in a hurry. So I am explaining. I know when I have hurried. So if a process like this occurs, then what is expected? So in a quantum example is, I gave you two examples. One is Compton effect. Compton effect is written in the elementary particle way of writing. This is a reaction process. A process involves a photon and an electron. Photon and an electron. They get scattered to give you a photon and electron of different energy momentum. That's what is the called as Compton effect. And if this is known to occur, people have experimentally observed Compton effect before long back. So then you can predict that based on crossing symmetry, as a consequence of crossing symmetry, we have pair annihilation. How is pair annihilation coming in here? Because if I take this process, that is first process, then you take E minus to right left hand side, it becomes a E plus. So E minus taken to left hand side and gamma taken to right hand side. You have two gammas, E plus plus E minus. This is what is known to you as a pair annihilation process, and this is also seen experimentally. The first Compton effect and the pair annihilation process are related to each other by crossing symmetry is the terminology that we use. And then we have pair creation process, that is gamma. If I take it to the other side, gamma bar is gamma itself. I take this gamma, one gamma to left hand side, then it becomes gamma. This gamma taken to left hand side, it becomes gamma. But E plus becomes E minus, E minus becomes E plus. So that is what I have written here. So this is a consequence of crossing symmetry. You have to remember that photon is its own antiparticle. If you don't believe, take it as my confirmation. People have confirmed it. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Otherwise, believe me and take photon as its own antiparticle. People studied, when you know antiparticles, which are their own antiparticles, which are not their antiparticles, etc., etc. That also becomes a study, because Dirac proved that for every particle there exists an antiparticle. So now you have to list, say, particles and antiparticles as a separate entities. Then you notice that some particles have their own antiparticles. So now one of the things that we know is photon is its own antiparticle. So gamma bar is written as gamma itself. Gamma bar is gamma. That's what I should remember. So with that, we will go ahead and say one more example. Example 2 is very important. So please remember this. I have a free neutron decay. This is always discussed throughout your course. There is a free neutron decay. The neutron decays into a proton, electron, and an antineutrino. Then according to crossing symmetry, that is, if I have a crossing symmetry relation, what I am doing is take E minus to left hand side, it becomes a E plus. So neutron plus E plus becomes a proton plus what I wrote as antineutrino, because we just say that there exists some additional particle, call it as this nu bar. So with this, what I call this process is called as inverse beta decay. This is called as inverse beta decay. What is inverse beta decay? It is a crossing symmetry relation of neutron. If it is put with a positron, it gives you a proton plus an antineutrino. This should occur according to crossing symmetry. Do you verify it? It's a task for the experimental physicist. So we have to wait and see who does the experiment and gets it confirmed. That's what was the kind of experiments and theory collaborations during the period when people were studying symmetries and conservation laws. So with that, we will go ahead again. And I have one more thing. That is, I have to ensure that all the elementary particle physics today, we notice that all the elementary particle interactions, what are they? Strong, weak, and electromagnetic. These are the only interactions. Put particles together, they may undergo interactions like strong interaction, or weak interaction, or electromagnetic interaction, combined strong, weak, and all that. So they all obey crossing symmetry. Is the kind of slogan that you should remember always. So with that, so now we will go ahead with another aspect, that is to talk about time reversal symmetry. That is another symmetry. This is also a discrete symmetry, which I will tell you. All elementary particle interactions are invariant under time reversal. So that is what is the slogan. That is, I believe that this should be a good symmetry, because how time flows, is it forward or backward? That is, I have a clock, I am a left-handed person, in the sense that time flows backward for me as a physicist observer. I will tick counts from time t is equal to, let us say, 10 o'clock, I will start counting it up to 9 o'clock. But laws of physics should respect it is the observation. There should be a symmetry. If time goes forward or time goes backward, I should have a symmetry. And this symmetry implies, according to this symmetry, you may find it vague, but you should believe that laws of physics, in you have a mathematical formulation of our laws. If you change t to minus t, I should get the same result. That is, data that you get in experiment, it should not differ. That's what is called as time reversal symmetry. If that doesn't remain, that doesn't change, then you call it as time reversal symmetry. So now, time reversal symmetry implies, that is, definition of time reversal symmetry is, if A plus B is seen to give you C plus D, then C plus D should give you A plus B. That is, don't change them into C bar and D bar. Reverse the time. C and D give you A and B. There is a difference between crossing symmetry and time reversal symmetry. Please remember that. If A and B give you C and D in future, what was future becomes past. This is past. This is future. So then, whatever was future becomes past, and this is future. What is time reversal symmetry saying? If you notice past to future kind of a process happening in nature, then you are supposed to see that whatever was future can become a past, leading you to this other process. This is possible in nature. That's what is the assertion of your time reversal symmetry. Again, once again, I tell you, you don't have conservation laws associated with discrete symmetries. But consequence of discrete symmetry is that if this happens, okay, if this process happens, then you expect the backward process also. This is also possible. That is an experimental verification of a discrete symmetry. So you have different ways of noticing conservation law, symmetries. Symmetry associated with conservation law only for continuous symmetries. Discrete symmetries also guide you to check if a process happens, then you have reverse process also happens. Crossing symmetry tells you if you replace a particle by an antiparticle, when it goes to left hand side, that is a related symmetry. Expect such a process to happen. So it is the slogan for other symmetry. So you have to classify in your mind what is a symmetry, continuous symmetry, what is discrete symmetry. You make a list by working in your mind whatever has been told, and then you will understand this. So this is time reversal symmetry. And what I am trying to tell you here is, fine, I have time reversal symmetry and associated processes that I should check. So with that, I can give you some examples. So one example that I'm always highlighting is the neutron decay. If you take a neutron decay, then there is an inverse beta decay occurring due to crossing symmetry. I had given this as an example of crossing symmetry. Once you have crossing symmetry relation, I will take what is called as, just a minute, it went down. So when I say you have crossing symmetry, let me tell you, this is a process. This process should occur in nature is what tells you by crossing symmetry. Crossing symmetry demands that if a neutron decays into a proton plus an electron plus an antineutrino, then this implies that this should also occur by crossing symmetry. Correct? Because I'm taking a E minus to left hand side, making it a antiparticle. This should occur is the demand of crossing symmetry. Crossing symmetry dictates that this process should happen. Now, what is the corresponding time reversal process? Make t going to minus t. Here in this process, this is happening, and then t goes to minus t. What is the result is the question. According to time reversal symmetry, I should find proton plus antineutrino should give me neutron plus E plus. This is a time reversal process. T going to minus T implies that this process happens, this process should happen. So then I get more number of processes for the experimentalists to check. Experimentalists should verify how many things are possible in nature. So they should depend on what is crossing symmetry, what is antiparticle symmetry, and all that. That is time reversal symmetry and all kinds of things. With that, we will now kind of consolidate on time reversal symmetry. Remember this process, proton plus antineutrino. Last one, proton plus antineutrino giving you a neutron plus positron. This is an important process. And I go ahead with discovery of neutrons. So I will tell you at that point of time again. So now what I want to tell you is, fine, we have got this. About time reversal symmetry, as a short note, you have to write all this. One example, and then say time reversal is a discrete symmetry. That is only T goes to minus T, only once. So that's what is called reversal of the sign of the direction of time. And there is no direct evidence. So far, we have not got any experimental evidence on the violation of time reversal symmetry in elementary particle interactions. I should stop here at this point. All interactions obey time reversal symmetry because we don't have a direct experimental evidence on the violation. But when I go ahead, I will tell you, keep this in mind. There is something called a CPT theorem. CPT, that is, this is for future. I am telling you about time reversal symmetry. With this note, just remember, you are all advanced in your mindset. I will tell you what I am going to discuss next, but this keep it in mind. So what is called as charge conjugation? I have told you charge conservation, but there is something called as charge conjugation symmetry and parity symmetry and time reversal. All three are discrete symmetries. I'm telling you, believing that you can take it, time reversal symmetry. This is called as CPT, charge conjugation, parity, and time reversal. Charge conjugation implies that a particle becomes an antiparticle. Q goes to minus Q. Any particle you have, change it to antiparticle. Or if you have a photon, change it to a photon, no problem. If you have a neutrino, change it to an antineutrino according to charge conservation. Sorry, charge conjugation. Conservation is different. Conjugation is different. These are two different symmetries. Charge conservation is a consequence of gauge symmetry, but charge conjugation is a discrete symmetry where you change Q to minus Q or a particle to antiparticle. Both are indicated by charge conjugation. Under parity, you take XYZ to minus XYZ, that is minus X, minus Y, minus Z. And similarly, if you have time reversal, you take time T to minus T. Under a combined operation of CPT, one says that all elementary particle physics remains the same. That is, it doesn't change. That is the final slogan that I am going to say after we discuss all kinds of symmetries possible. Today, I am telling you in advance, time reversal, there is no evidence, fine. But what is confirmed today is CPT invariance. That I will tell you much later, but remember, this statement is not very sacrosanct. Today, I am telling you that we don't have experimental evidence for violation of time reversal symmetry. So I will say, fine, we have time reversal symmetry to be taken. That means if I have a neutron plus positron, one example, neutron plus positron giving you a proton plus antineutrino, then I should find proton plus antineutrino going to neutron plus electron as a consequence of time reversal. That should be expected in nature. If you want to, if you see this, that implies this. That is what is the idea. So when you expect this theoretically, how do you use it in an experiment is the next kind of discussion that we have. So let me see this. Okay. So I have given you some problems in the assignment sheet. Let us now, I will ask you this question. Which of the following processes are connected to each other by crossing symmetry? 1. and then time reversal symmetry. So you have to list the processes which go with crossing symmetry and time reversal symmetry. I have explained. So you have to unmute yourself and answer. I write the first process, E plus photon going to E plus photon. It is like a Compton scattering involving a positron. Okay. Instead of an electron, you have a positron for positron photon Compton effect. This one, which are all related. Is this related to this process, first process, using your crossing symmetry? Hello, you tell me what is crossing symmetry reaction allowed with first process. I will list it. What is a crossing symmetry? Then we will search this whole table. What are the crossing symmetry relations? Crossing symmetry. So will you tell me crossing symmetry relations? What should you do for crossing symmetry? If you take a particle to left hand side, make it an anti-particle. That's the rule. So tell me crossing symmetry relations here. 2 on the left, 2 on the right. Don't use time reversal symmetry as of now. Only use crossing symmetry. Tell me.
E minus and gamma.
E minus.
Okay, 1. E minus plus gamma.
Gamma.
Going to E minus plus gamma. Fine. This is what is known as your Compton effect, correct? Then one more. Somebody else's voice I heard. So one more process.
E plus E minus giving rise to gamma plus gamma.
Okay, fine. Gamma plus gamma. That is there. E minus plus gamma. This is there. So this is related to this. That's what is told. Okay, let me erase all these things and again start because it has crosstalks. So this is related using crossing symmetry, and you told the other one also, this and this crossing symmetry. Fine. Now, is there anything else? Crossing symmetry, fine. Now look for time reversal. Oh, you have also a 2 gamma process, which is not listed here. So, okay, time reversal. All right, let us take a second process. Is the second process related to first process by crossing symmetry or time reversal?
No, ma'am.
Oh, no, this is a separate one. So we have listed first process and 1, 2, 3, fourth process, third and fourth. 1, 3, and 4 are related through crossing symmetry. That's what you can write, correct? So now let us take second process and list all the processes which are related to it by crossing symmetry. Second process is E plus plus E minus. So I have now written what is the crossing symmetry connection of 1, 2, and 3. This, all right. This, and this. Done. Now look at second process and tell me what are the relations first. Then we will search the table. Second process, what is the corresponding crossing symmetry relation?
It gives the same time reversal symmetry.
No, I want first crossing symmetry. We'll go in one order. Suppose I take a E plus. If E plus plus E minus going to E plus plus E minus, what are the crossing symmetry relations first? Then we will think about time reversal. For this, is there a crossing symmetry relation? Yes or no? I have a E plus plus E minus going to E plus plus E minus. Same relation. Agreed? Once. All right. I also get E plus plus. Take a E minus to left hand side. You get a E plus.
E plus.
So this gives you a
E
E
minus
minus plus
E minus.
E minus. Similarly, you take a E minus plus E minus. It goes to E plus plus E plus.
E plus plus E plus.
That's all. That's all are the possibilities. Do you have them? This is not happening. E minus plus E minus. It goes. Fine. So I have to relate these two. Oh no. Which are same? 2. Okay. Let me erase all these things now. And let me tell you what I have. So I have second process is related to 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one. Agreed? Fifth one. That's all. All right, we have covered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These two are related by crossing symmetry and also time reversal. That is fine. But I have to group them together. That is, which implies which is the thing that I need to know. So if I ask you which symmetry is that, then you have to mention time reversal as well as crossing symmetry. Don't get mixed up with things. Now let us go ahead with last 3 reactions. Are they related to each other is the question. So now you don't take all
Excuse
these
me,
things.
ma'am.
Okay. Let us write it.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Okay, I will write it. So let me say proton plus pi
Hello, ma'am.
minus. Hello? Hello?
Ma'am, 2 and 5, I do
2
not agree
and
with cross symmetry, ma'am.
it will. 2, let us say, I will tell you. If you have any doubts about it, if I am doing wrong, let us see. Crossing symmetry means you take an antiparticle, right? Left hand side, whatever you have, you take it as an antiparticle when it comes to a right hand side. So I will take E plus to right hand side and make it an antiparticle. What do you get? E minus goes to E plus plus E minus. What becomes of E plus? It becomes a E minus, correct? And now take this E plus to left hand side, you get a E minus plus a E minus becoming a E, sorry, what is happening here? Just a minute.
E
I
plus
might have
and E
done
plus.
something wrong.
Yes, ma'am.
Wait a minute. E plus plus E plus. Yeah. This doesn't happen. All right, correct.
Yes, ma'am.
This
2 and
doesn't
5
happen.
don't happen.
Yeah. This does not happen.
Ma'am, also
Sorry,
because
sorry.
charge conservation is not,
Correct,
it's
correct.
not
Very
working.
correct. Thank you. Good. Good. We have to remember all kinds of symmetries. This does not happen. So now I have the other 3. So what are related? This is not related to anything. This is standing alone here. This process is standing alone here. If this happens or not, that is decided by charge conservation. Charge conservation tells you -2 on left hand side and +2 on right hand side. You are very much correct. Thank you. So now I have written last 3 processes. You have to observe this. What are the last 3 processes? I have a P plus pi minus going to a N plus pi 0. Let us write crossing symmetries. So I will write a crossing symmetry of P pi bar, and I can write what is pi min. Oh no. See, I do mistakes like this. So what should I do as far as crossing symmetry relation is concerned? I can write a N bar when it comes here, plus I can keep the pi minus, and I will take proton to the right hand side. There is a P bar, plus I have a pi 0. Correct? This is okay? I'm not checking the table. I'm writing only what is. Don't look at this table, but corresponding crossing symmetry. You can list all of them. So I get this reaction. And also I can write proton plus a neutron bar should give me a pi 0 plus a pi plus. That is possible. So I can also have proton plus pi 0 because antiparticle pi 0 antiparticle is pi 0. Remember this. For gamma, I have already told you gamma bar is gamma. Similarly, I am telling you today that antiparticle of a neutral pion is neutral pion itself. That's all I will say. So proton plus pi 0 bar, that gives you a neutron plus a pi plus. All these are crossing symmetry relations. Fine. So then I have found this one. Is it there anywhere? I don't have a P bar on the left hand side. But if you reverse this process, time reversal, it will give you P bar plus a pi plus, P bar plus a pi plus. Where is that? I have not written it. Are you able to see it? This is there. This one is a time reversal combined with a crossing symmetry relation. So if I write P bar plus pi plus, and left hand side will be crossing symmetry tells you N bar plus a pi 0. This is crossing symmetry. This is crossing symmetry. And then I will take a time reversal. T going to minus T. That implies P bar plus pi plus goes to a N bar plus a pi 0. So this is related to this. Fine. So the other process is proton plus third one, last one. So if I erase all these things, take first process and the last process. First means this one and last process. Are they related? P pi 0 bar, when it comes to left hand side, it is pi 0 itself. This is fine. And neutron is there. Pi minus should become a pi plus. If it were a pi plus, then I would have said this is related, but I have given you a pi minus here. So it won't be related. Fine? Agreed? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you can list the processes and explain which are possible, which are not possible. It means if this happens in nature, the third and fourth are expected to happen in nature. That's what is the result. One should do an experiment and confirm it. It is confirmed. Second process is not related to this process. So if it happens, you cannot expect this to happen. So we don't have such relation. And of the last three, I have these two related to each other, but this is not related to these two and none of the other things. So that is what is the expected answer for this question. So then I will now go ahead with neutrino discovery. I think that's all I have here. Okay, this is problem. Fine. So I will now go to what is meant by neutrino discovery. So now we have learned crossing symmetry. With the help of this crossing symmetry relations and other things, one can detect the neutrino. How did they do it? These are two American scientists, Reines and Cowan. They got Nobel Prize for detecting neutrino in 1956. So now, what we know about a neutrino? Theoretically, we have known about some properties of the neutrino. These properties say that neutrinos are massless. In a beta decay experiment, I have found that I have ascribed spin half for this. Otherwise, angular momentum conservation will not work in proton decay, neutron decay. So I have said this should be massless, this should be spin half and chargeless also. I forgot to write it. Charge 0. It is a neutral particle. Charge 0 or neutral. That is, neutrino is a neutral particle. By name itself, it is a neutral particle. So I have all the three properties that I ascribe to a neutrino. Having said that, we have known that beta particles are found in the decay of neutron going to proton, E minus and nu bar. Now, I can also have a kind of corresponding relation here. This is also possible. That is seen in nature experimentally. Positron decay instead of electron decay. Are they related to through crossing symmetry? Will you check it? Crossing symmetry and time reversal. Will you be able to check it? And tell me, 1 and 2 are related through crossing symmetry and time reversal. Answer.
Yes, ma'am.
So you do a time reversal and this thing. So 1 and 2 are related and they are also found in experimentally. These are detected experimentally. So one means other. So one finds positron decay also in a nucleus where proton decays into a neutron, positron and a neutrino. That is, neutrino is not seen, but you do find a neutron and positron kind of a process in your experiments. So with that, I will now say, I have to explain this. Nu bar denotes what is called as an antineutrino and nu is a neutrino. Our notations, to confirm our notations, that's what I say. And positron decay is related to electron decay by crossing symmetry combined with time reversal symmetry. You should be able to write what is the crossing symmetry process and then you have to write the time reversal process to confirm that if one happens, 2 also happens. That's what is the kind of relation. With that, with this knowledge of whatever we have done so far, we will now say, fine, we will go ahead. This is positron. Okay. another crossing symmetry process called inverse beta decay. That is P plus nu bar gives you a neutron plus E plus. This I have given as an example in crossing symmetry relations. This is also possible, is predicted. Okay. If I have a source of antineutrinos, if I keep a source of antineutrinos and hit antineutrino beam with the proton target, I am supposed to get a neutron and a positron. That is expected if neutrinos exist. If neutrino exists, then I should be able to have a source of neutrinos, hit it with a proton. You should have a detector for neutron and a positron. Is it possible? That is the kind of question we have. Let me repeat. I want to detect neutrinos. Then I am listing where all neutrinos are occurring in nature. So I said equation 2 gives you possibilities where neutrinos occur in nature. These two processes are known to occur in nature. With that, I am trying to see another process which is crossing symmetry relation. So that is going to be inverse beta decay, which I have given as an example of crossing symmetry relation of neutron decay. Fine. So with that, I will continue. Neutrino carries no electric charge. So there are problems involved in detecting the neutrino. Okay, spelling mistake. Neutrino carries no electric charge, and so it cannot produce ionization in matter. If there is ionization, can I say it is neutrino which is causing it? No, I don't have that facility. So the usual methods for the detection of detect charged particles. This cannot be applied to the detection of the neutrino. So now I have neutrino is massless. Neutrino is massless. That means it cannot transfer energy to other particle by collision. If I have two massive particles, when they collide with each other, there is an energy change. But if there are no masses, then it cannot transfer its energy to any other particle by collision also. So I have lost my approach of experiments there. So methods, we know some methods which are applicable in the case of detection of electrically neutral but massive particles. We have developed methods for them. For example, to detect a neutrino, that could have been done. So, but this cannot be used in the case of neutrinos. We have two difficulties here. It is chargeless, it is massless. So how do we detect is the biggest problem for us. So there are no experimental evidence for the detection of the neutrino, even after it is predicted for 25 years earlier when Pauli proposed it in the process, because conservation laws should hold. But still, to confirm conservation laws in neutron decay holds, we have to find a neutrino. Till then, we are not resting in peace. So we have to detect a neutrino to confirm that conservation laws hold and neutrino exists. According to conservation laws, I have to detect a neutrino. How do we do it is a question. So for that, what was done is what I am explaining. So in 1956, Reines and Cowan, they were successful in this task. Their experiment was conducted at what is called as a river nuclear reactor. People had river nuclear reactor. We have it in Bombay, some Apsara reactor or something, which is in a river. You identify that, you can find what is neutron production, and reactors are meant to give you energy for conversion into different processes. They had reactors very early. So they used this kind of a nuclear reactor in South Carolina, USA. How did they do it is the question. So let us see that. They considered, it is important, I told you, this process is very important. They considered inverse beta decay process to prove the existence of antineutrino. Proving antineutrino existence is equivalent to proving neutrino existence, which I can tell you how. So, but right now, any neutrino detection means antineutrino detection as of now. So I will just go ahead and talk about what they used. They used this particular process called as inverse beta decay process. In inverse beta decay, you are expected to have a proton target, and nu bar is a beam, hit target with a beam. This is important because I always find in nature targets like in water also. If you take water, water is a source of protons. as well as water contains only protons, H2O. There are no neutrons. So if I have a proton and if I can find a source of neutrino, I can expect what can happen in nature. So they chose this kind of a process. Inverse beta decay process is chosen by Reins and Cowan. And what they did, so now their experimental setup was, okay, first before I go to the experimental setup, they listed some features. They found that the cross section for interaction of antineutrino proton is very low. They noticed that if it happens, let us say proton plus a antineutrino giving you a neutron plus a positron, will it happen? Their experiment told that it is very, very weak. Weak means what? Their cross section. That is, if I keep a detector for a positron and a neutron, suppose I keep a detector to detect these particles later on, what is the probability? That is given by differential cross section in an experiment. They found that this is very, very low. Their experiment indicated. After they did the experiment, they say cross section is very, very low and it's a very weak interaction. It is a weak interaction indeed in the terms of interactions. Now, what is that they found? They showed that from their experimental data that cross section between, for interaction between antineutrino and P proton is, say, just a minute, minus 45, 10 to the minus 45 meters squared, because cross sections are given as area. Area is the cross section. That is, in the sense, what is cross section? Differential cross section has area units. How much is the area? That is, if I say centimeter squared or meter squared area, that is what is expected. So this is 10 to the power minus 45 meter squared, or this is also called as 10 to the minus 19 barn. What is the unit of something called as barn is given by 10 to the power minus 24 meter squared is called 1 barn. So this is something which is any particle physicist or nuclear physicist will use as a unit. Different levels, domains use different units. So this is 1 barn is 10 to the minus 24 meter squared. So I use that and I say that this is minus 45. This is 10 to the power minus 19 barn is the unit. So with that, I will now say the inverse beta decay. That is, if I take a new proton plus a antineutrino giving you a neutron plus a positron, this is very, very weak. That is, it has very small reaction cross section, because other processes have better cross section, but this is very weak. To observe it, it is very, very difficult, is what Reins and Covans observed. So what they used a very high antineutrino flux. That is, they used 5 into 10 to the power 13 particles per centimeter squared per second. That's what is high flux of antineutrinos. From where do they get this antineutrino source? They use neutron decay. Neutron decay is supposed to happen in nature. So if you keep this process, there is antineutrino. You keep observing a beta particles. Beta means E minus. This, if you keep observing, you find beta particles are emitted 5 into 10 to the power 13 particles per centimeter squared per second. If you find that, you are saying that neutrinos are also produced 5 into 10 to the power of 13 per centimeter squared. This can be confirmed, isn't it? If you find beta particles, that implies that there is an antineutrino of same variety, same number, because every beta decay process contains one antineutrino. If one beta particle is found, there should be one antineutrino. So they confirmed that you have 5 into 10 to the power of particles are there before they started their experiment. So even with this high intensity, they could only hope for 2 or 3 inverse beta decay events every hour. That is, if you hit a proton with such a high source of antineutrons, you will observe a neutron plus a E plus only 2 or 3 such events in 1 hour. What is expected in 1 hour? With per second probably high flux, you will only observe 2 or 3 because cross section is weak, very low cross section. I hope you understand what I am saying. So with that, they attempted this experiment with 2 or 3 such per hour. 2 or 3 is what can be observed. That's what is final conclusion. But I am telling you in beginning itself. So Reins and Kovan set up a large tank, that is a reactor tank which existed, tank of water, and recorded the inverse beta decay process. Their attempt is to record the inverse beta decay process. They have a large tank of water. This is a reactor tank which is covered by what is called as lead and paraffin. That is protecting the tank from everything. They have a tank. I will give you a picture, but I couldn't draw it today. I will show you the picture of this. So they have a tank where they observe this. They considered intense antineutrino particles flux there. They entering these large detector tanks. I have written 3. I will tell you why 3. So they have, let us say, I will explain it in 1 minute. So let me go ahead and say 2 of the tanks. There are 3 tanks. So set up a large tank where there are 3 partitions in that. There 2 of the tanks contain what is called as a scintillating liquid. Scintillating liquid converts a high energy gamma ray into a visible light. So that is possible in an experiment. So that is condensed matter theory will tell you that you have some material which absorbs this high energy radiation and converts it into a scintillation. Scintillation is seen visibly by you, by visible light. It's a visible light. So that kind of scintillations are seen in reactors where we observe that, okay, process is happening, process is not happening through such scintillations. So this was separated by a target tank in which cadmium chloride is dissolved. So let me draw a picture for you. For now, I will share it later on. So what is the reactor setup? I have a huge lead paraffin cover here. This is a cover here. And I have 3 partitions. In this, I have water, scintillator. This has scintillations. And similarly here, tank 1, tank 2, water. That is scintillations are there. And here, central one, I have water dissolved in cadmium chloride solutions. Cadmium chloride solution is there. Why do I do it is I will tell you. This is a usual setup for any reactor processes. If I take this, 2 of the tanks containing scintillation liquid and they were separated by target tank in which a cadmium chloride is dissolved. So with that, we will continue and say, fine, I have these scintillations produced in the tank. Scintillations are produced means what? If there are visible photons, visible light produced in the tank, not from outside, but only when there is a visible light, they are detected using some photomultiplier tubes. In the Reins-Kovan experiment, there were 110 such photomultiplier tubes. What is happening? I will tell you that if at all there is a gamma ray is a heavy, high energy particle, then it will become a scintillation, means visible light. This scintillation is a visible light and visible light has low energy and this is detected by a photomultiplier tube, which means a visible light can produce photoelectric effect. At the end of photoelectric effect, I have an electron knocked off from the photomultiplier tube. How many electrons? It is quite enough. For every scintillating process, I have an electron. Photomultiplier multiplies such electrons and in the end, I get an electric pulse. So I want to tell you in every detection process of gamma ray, a gamma ray becomes with the help of scintillator and photomultiplier tube, it becomes an electric pulse. I'm not writing all that because you will study it in your detector theory. What I want to use here is detection methods depend on gamma ray is detected by an electric pulse of appropriate height. If gamma ray energy is small, electric pulse is also height wise, it is small, etc. etc. So I will only say gamma ray detection is done with the help of a photomultiplier tube. It is known to us, let us say. They had 110 photomultiplier tubes to catch the photons from anywhere. Surrounding the tank, they had photomultiplier tubes. So they detected. So the entire setup was surrounded by lead paraffin cover, which I mentioned, and placed deep underground. All these experiments should ensure that beyond what I expect, nothing else should enter here. Cosmic rays will produce all kinds of particles. If they enter the tank, then you will expect many other processes to happen. What do you expect? You have to expect only proton plus antineutrino, proton plus antineutrino gives you a neutron plus positron. For that, what is the setup is what I am explaining. In this particular process, you don't have anything else to enter, not even a gamma ray. Gamma ray should not enter. What should enter is only antineutron that should enter the tank. Nothing else should enter the tank. Antineutrino cannot be prevented by any shield, any lead, any paraffin. So it will enter the tank. So, but photon can be prevented. Photon prevention is done by lead paraffin cover. So nothing else enters other than neutrino. Antineutrino is ensured to protect this. It is kept under deep underground so that you don't have cosmic ray particles entering it. So we want to say that this is what is happening. And then I will say the interaction between antineutrino and proton, we do know it should give you in the target tank produces a neutron and a positron. That is, I have whenever a proton hits with a neutrino beam, it gives you a neutron plus positron. This happens. So one expects the inverse beta decay. Fine. Then what I get here is the positron produced like that. In the inverse beta decay, whatever is expected, it gives you what? It immediately annihilates with the electrons present in the tank, because you do expect protons and electrons present in the tank. Positron will immediately interact with possible electrons. It gives you 2 photons. So you have gamma rays. And method of detecting gamma rays is scintillations. And scintillations along with photomultiplier tube, you get an electric pulse. Electric pulse is what? It is a current pulse or voltage pulse. You can use your electronics to detect these kind of pulses. That's what I am saying. Remember, gamma rays required to be detected. Where do they get produced? This positron gets annihilated using an electron inside the tank. It gives you 2 photons. Each of the photons have energy 0.51 MeV each, because positron and electron, their rest mass energy is 0.51 each. So you get this is 1.01 MeV shared between 2 photons. That is what is a expected process. So the results of the production of a pair of photons of energy 0.51 MeV each, so which can be recorded using a gamma-gamma coincidence experiment. I will tell you what it is. So first let me say detection methods known are used here. But what are the detection methods known? We know to detect a gamma ray. How? There is a scintillation, there is a photon multiplier tube. With that I will detect it. So now I will say, fine, I am detecting it by what is the question. So their experiment had the scintillations produced. Scintillations are produced. Scintillations produced by a pair of gamma rays. They lead to 2 different electric pulses. One gamma ray gives you 1 electric pulse, other one gives you another electric pulse. What is the distance between the 2 pulses? If I produce an electric pulse from one gamma ray, another gamma ray of same height, these 2 are fed to an electronic circuit called as coincidence circuit. It is called as coincidence circuit, which can be built easily. So one input is 1 gamma ray, input 1. this is another input, input 2. So let me call it input 1 and input 2. So if I find input 1 and input 2, I find an output. Otherwise, no output. So if I write a table for this, that is experimentally done. I have a coincident circuit. Assume that gamma 1 is input 1, gamma 2 is input 2. And if both the inputs are there, I get an output. Otherwise, no output. So I should say that this is like saying a table, truth table, where I have a circuit where I have an input, I have an output. So input 1 and input 2, I will write 1, 1, output is 1. If input 1 is there, no input 2, then I should not get an output. If this is 0, 1, I should get 0. Both inputs are not there, I will call it as 0. What is this circuit? The logic gate circuit.
And
We have a coincident circuit acting like an AND gate. AND gate circuits are there. You feed an electric pulse which is coming from gamma 1. You feed an electric pulse coming from gamma 2. Only if both are there, you get out. Both should be present. This is called coincidence counting. If both are there, what is the output that is seen? How many are coming? That is an indication that you have got a process which gave you 2 pulses. This implies that coincidence counts. In an experiment, electric pulse counting. So if I do that, what do I see? The scintillations lead to electric pulses when they pass through photomultiplier tube. The outputs of photomultiplier tube are then fed to coincidence circuit, giving an output electric signal only when the electric pulses resulting from the 2 photon of energy 0.51 MeV are found to be the input electric pulses. I designed my coincidence circuit such that 0.51 MeV photons lead to 2 different inputs. If they are coming together, then I get an output. That's what is the design of this experiment. Having done that, I will now say, fine, we are ready to detect the neutrinos in that way. Further, I will say, what is the fate of neutrons produced? Because what I have is anti-neutrino source is there. Sorry, don't do a mistake of writing. Neutrino is a different notation. Photon is a different notation. I am reminding you whenever I can, possibly. This is a neutron plus positron. Positron, I am taking care of. That is because it gives you 2 photons. So this leads to coincidence counts. Counts means how many times such coincidence occurs is counted there. Now I want to see what happens to neutrons. So I want to tell you neutrons, fate of the neutrons produced in inverse beta decay. So what is the fate? Their fate. So the neutrons produced in inverse beta decay, they suffer multiple collisions and get slowed down because neutrons are massive. So in the target tank, where I have a cadmium chloride solution, water is there, there is a cadmium chloride solution, a neutron produced here, it will undergo collisions with water molecules, whatever cadmium chloride solution is there, it just undergoes decay and it gets slowed down slowly because it loses energy. When it loses energy, what we get is basically called as thermal neutrons. That is, it has energy of thermal neutron kind of a thing. That is, its energy can be calculated by A into T. Its energy can be given by Boltzmann's constant and the temperature what we can be associated with it. That reduces energy. High energy neutrons are produced, fine, but I slow it down. How? Because cadmium is a good absorber of neutrons. We know it experimentally. So I take cadmium solution which absorbs neutrons. But how long it takes? The thermal neutrons are there. These thermal neutrons are finally eaten by cadmium solution, which emits. Suppose I have neutrons and I have a cadmium chloride solution, water. So that gives you finally some things plus a photon of 10 MeV. So I have to only look for what is produced as a gamma ray here. I get a gamma ray of energy 10 MeV. So what is our experiment? We have got a E plus plus E minus giving me a 2 photon process and a neutron finally leading to a 10 MeV gamma ray, one single gamma ray for each neutron. So in a process, I should be able to detect these and find neutrino. How did Reins and Cowan did it is the question. So let me say how did they do it. So now the gamma rays of energy 10 MeV were then detected again by scintillation counter, but only single. So gamma ray of 10 MeV, scintillations and PMT, that gives you a electric pulse. But it takes some time to do neutron collisions and it reduces, slows, and then emits a photon. It takes some time. After 2 photons are produced, you have already noticed that 2 photons are there. This is detected using a coincidence counter. And after that, some time later, you find a 10 MeV photon. That's what is expected from an inverse beta decay in an experimental setup. The scintillations produced get converted into electric pulses after they pass through, and they get detected experimentally using the known methods, fine. But then what happens is, I will just tell you. So the coincidence electric pulses, I have putting them all together. I get a double pulse is what I mean. The coincidence pulses occurring from 2 photons due to positron annihilation, these two and the 10 MeV photons associated with thermal neutron. There are 2 processes. They are recorded experimentally in a gamma ray detector finally. What is expected now? There is a time delay of 1 to 25 microseconds. You have a delay between 2 photons and a single photon, 10 MeV. This is coming from a neutron. This is coming from a positron annihilation. This is coming from neutron absorption in the medium. So these two have a time delay of, let us say, maximum 25 microseconds. Can I see it? I can't count what is 25 microseconds, but experimentally what I do is I should expect this 2 different pulses. What should I expect? If I plot the pulses here, that is height. Okay. What should I do here? I will check the detection by in some way. So I will write what is called as time here. This is time. Ayyo. There is time here. And I do find a pulse, let us say, and then a bigger pulse with a gap of, say, maximum 25 microseconds. This is called a double pulse. If I get this kind of a double pulse, it's a very clear indication that I had a 2 photon coincidence. This is coincidence. It is coming from a coincidence circuit. This is coming from a gamma pulse PMT kind of a converter of 10 MeV. Its height is more and it is separated by a first coincidence pulse by 25 microseconds. This is called as a double pulse event. So if I take such a thing, so I do have recorded, these are recorded. There occurs a time delay is what I said. And then I do notice that the coincidence electric pulses, 1 minute. This is the same slide. The same sheet is coming. Oh, I have not recorded it. What happened to this? All right. So just give me a minute. I have to finish this. So please wait. I will check what I have done here. So and then come back. Please be there. Because I have done some error in finalizing it. So I have a last little things which I need to check. 1 minute. All right, where is this? It takes little time for me to compile the text file. Cheh. Very sad. Where did it go? All right, fine. I will take this. Check. It's not responding. Okay. I'll just check it again. It's not seen. All right. Okay. So, okay, this is what is there. Reins and Cowan, they detected 2 to 3 pulses because I told you earlier that they can expect the beta decay and inverse beta decay to occur 2 to 3 events in 1 hour. That's all can be recorded. So they could record 2 to 3 such double pulses. What are double pulses? I showed you a signal of electric pulses recorded in their experiment. Such double pulses per hour, 1 hour, they expected 2 to 3 such double pulses from their experimental observations. Their experiment was conducted for about 1,400 hours. They conducted this experiment 1,400 hours to confirm that every hour they recorded 2 to 3 such things. These results provided a clear experimental confirmation on the existence of a neutrino. That's what I wanted to tell you. So that's all is there in this, I think. Yes. Okay. So I didn't connect with what is the pictures I have not given yet. So pictures I will